Record. Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to Inspiration Hour with Luz. I'm so excited. By the way, happy almost New Year. We're kissing away 2021 and thanking 2021 for all its life lessons, all its laughter, all its love, all its sadness, all its growth. And we're welcoming the new year. And I'm so excited to have my guest on the podcast for kicking off this old year and bringing in the new and bringing in some positivity and more of what makes us special, right? What makes us grow, what makes us excel in life, and what makes us inspiring people that we are. So with that, I want to read the bio of our guest. She's a personal friend and someone I admire so much, and I've learned so much from her. She helps me feel like a better human, and I love saying that. And without further ado, Scarlen Martinez is the Deputy Director of Fellow Learning and Development of the GreatOAks Foundation. In her role, she supports the learning and development of fellows across the GreatOAks network through targeted professional development. She is an author of diverse children's books, a mother, career educator committed to uplifting the voices and needs of underserved communities. She believes in having diverse representation in literature to promote reading in marginalized communities. Scarlen is also an education advocate and supports marginalized groups of people navigating in this American education system by educating them on their rights and supporting them with obtaining free resources. So I'm so excited. Welcome, Scarlen. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Luz, for that lovely, lovely introduction. I think whenever I win an Oscar or something, I'm definitely going to hire you to bring me on this.
You should. Like, hello, we need to
ever do me justice like you just did. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so honored. And first of all, it's so easy for me to brag about you because we've known each other now for a little bit of some time. We've been following our journeys as writers and as mothers and as advocates. And it's so easy for me to brag about you because you're just such a special person. And I have to give space for women to grow. And I feel like this is my space. This is the way I help people grow. And how are you feeling? How's everything going for you?
I'm feeling, I've been better. I actually was supposed to be out the country, but COVID, Corona and Omicron and the rest of B2K just grabbed my leg and made me stuck in America. So I'm coming off of a COVID infection, but I'm home alone, I'm quarantined, but it's a lot of time to reflect. I'm on the year, on projects, on things that I want to accomplish. So I think God gives you what you need, whether it's not, what you want, it's a different story, but maybe this is the time that I needed to kind of sit my tail butt down and really reflect and hone in and center myself on what I've been doing, where I've been, and where I want to go in the future.
Oh, well said. I think I used to get upset when people say, if you're having a slow period, it's because God is trying to tell you something. And now I crave slow periods. So I know that right now, Corona got us in a weird state that we can't just go and do what we want. But I hope that in your slow period, that this is a period of growth, and not only growth, of more opportunities for you to increase your mission, because it seems like you are running on this beautiful mission. I want to learn more about you and what you do in your day job, because I feel like it ties in beautifully how you became an author.
So currently I'm the Deputy Director of Fellow Learning and Development at the GreatOAks Foundation. That's a mouthful. Really what that means in my space is the GreatOAks Foundation is a nonprofit education management company. They have several schools up and down the Northeast Corridor in Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. And hopefully, we're looking to partner up with more schools and spread our reach. But that's where we are now. In my role, what I do is I basically help create the arc of development for incoming AmeriCorps members, service members. If you guys are familiar with the AmeriCorps program, you can join AmeriCorps and do a year of service in many different facets to uplift the community and help this great country. Some people choose to do that year of service or 2 years of service in education through the GreatOAks Foundation. They are placed in the schools that we support. And as the Deputy Director of Fellow Learning and Development, then I am charged with the task of developing these people, these young adults, in their career and education and beyond. A really big part of that, and one of the reasons why I love my job right now, it's because I really get to influence how people engage with our communities. I have a long history in teaching. I was a teacher for a while. And one of the biggest things that I don't want to say bother me, but I think the biggest gaps that I see still in education today, in other programs, teaching programs that people join, is that you kind of take people from random different places and then put them, you roll the dice and put them in another random place, but there's no cultural education. There's no information or research given to people about what they're stepping into, how to best, coexist, how to best support the communities that they're going in. A lot of programs are still on this like kind of colonizer mentality of like, I'm going to come into your crib and your hood and push into your area and tell you what's best about, for your child, or what's best for this, or how you're going to succeed in the way that I think success, or I'm interpreting success. Success looks different for me, Luz, than when they look somebody in, I don't know, Italy, and when it looks like somebody from El Salvador. So a lot of times people do come in from their own communities with their own mindsets and come and kind of impose those on the communities that they serve in. So in my role, I am very fortunate that I kind of get to really talk to people about, hey, you need to learn the culture. Hey, you need to learn and appreciate these people. And you also need to come in with the mindset that you're not here to save any community. These communities do not need saving. These are thriving, beautiful, rich communities that just need allies, right? They need to be empowered. They need to be valued, and they need to be highlighted versus, the prevailing mindset, I think, in education, which is, let's go into urban education in these urban communities. Let's fix them.
Yeah.
And let's like help them be better. And what you're really saying is, let's help them assimilate into the white dominant culture. So I try to disrupt that, and I get the opportunity to do that and really, do it on a high level and on a wide level, across different states. And, early on, and because a lot of these people are, recent college grads, this is their first stab at a job. And I get to be a person that gets to support them initially, so they don't get in these like kind of, I don't want to say bad habits, but like stuck in these like mindsets that have prevailed for so long in education.
So you said a lot that resonated with me, having come from an urban community, growing up in Washington Heights, and then from growing up in Washington Heights, having my kids in private schools. I do see that a lot of the individuals that are coming from AmeriCorps, they have gotten out of the AmeriCorps program and gotten into private schools for different reasons, right? But some of them have still that mentality, right? That, we went into these communities, we learned the culture and the background, and had like kind of like, I don't want to call it the white savior mentality, but like they did their due diligence to save us. They did their impact in helping Black and brown communities. And it seems like there's a lot of education still need to be done, and a lot of work still needed to be done. But most importantly, the New York, I'm not going to speak for the United States, but New York City Board of Ed has a very unique way of hiring individuals. And for some reason, I keep hearing that we're taking people from different populations and placing them in the urban community because that's what we have. And I really do not believe that. I do believe that we have very talented individuals here in our own community that are going through a hard process of getting hired for different reasons. And I would like to learn a little bit about your experience through that, because we have such a wide array of talent that sometimes gets unnoticed, like they miss the opportunity, or they need some other credentials in order to get the job. So I wanted to hear your take on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like in any sector, there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of red tape. I think, unfortunately, in education, and when we talk about New York City, I remember when I first wanted to get into education, I was originally trying to be a publicist, and I was working at Condé Nast with the publicist for Self Magazine at the time, and I wanted to get an education. Being a mom, so young, and I was always driven to like give back and be part of my community somehow. And I tried to do it in New York, but it was a nightmare because I remember joining, I think at that time was like the New York Fellows or something like that. And
yeah,
I had heard like horror stories of like friends who had joined and like had very little to no training and were just thrown in a classroom. Like one of my friends was like 22 at the time. It was like teaching high school history. And she was like, I don't know what in the world I'm doing here. And these kids hate me. And I hate myself for like not being what they need to be and also getting clowned by these high school students. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds like a nightmare. I don't want to do that because not because it would be hard, but I always hated the idea of being a person in front of a class that wasn't enhancing that class. I think we do such a great disservice when we put people who are not prepared in front of kids, especially in, when I think about like the Latino community, being Dominican, I know that, especially for immigrants, I not just Latinos, I would say all immigrants that come to America really have a high regard for education because a lot of times in our own countries, education was a luxury. So we come to this country and we think like, geez, as long as they're in American school, they're going to be doing great. And sadly, Luz, that's not the reality.
I'm so happy you touch on that. And I'm sorry to interject. So
okay.
With the fellows program, I tried out for the fellows 5 times and I think I bombed because I was horrible at the interview process. I was horrible. My sister got accepted as a fellow. I don't want to speak too much about her personal experience, but I do know that after 2 weeks of teaching, she quit. Like it was a nightmare. And my mother stuck through the fellows program, but it was hard. And I feel like she stuck through it because of the like she had so much financial pressure to do well that she just bit her tongue and said, I'm going to make this work. But it's not because they set her up to do well. And one of the things I remember during the interview phrase, the amount of white people that were applying for these positions, it superseded Black and brown people. And they always got me upset because these are the same people that are going to be placed in our educational system in urban communities. And some of them had in the interview process set some kind of like red flags. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure this person is going to get the job because who were the people hiring in these positions? None of them looked Black. None of them looked Latino. None of them looked Asian or Indian. And that was always like, what's going on?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think this is something that's still prevalent now in education. When we look at the big education, I call them firms, but they're not firms, but the big education networks, when we look at charter schools, right? Like the Success Charter in New York, which is really big. I think they have over 100 schools in New York. You have KIPP New York. You have
that's the second famous one in New York City. And it's actually going across, if I understand it correctly, I think KIPP transcends New York City. Like there's some KIPPs in Boston.
Yeah, they're national. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like McDonald's.
McDonald's for kids.
For kids, right. So yeah, there's a bunch of different charters in New York, along with the public schools in New York. And like you said, when you look, go on LinkedIn, when you look up who's the superintendent, who's the CEO, who's the principals, when we, get down to a more molecular level, you see that there's a predominantly Caucasian base in these places, that a lot of the people in leadership are not people of color and are not representative of the communities that they serve in, right? Which is I don't want to say a red flag, but it is something that we must start to look at, unpack, and figure out how can we change this. Because, there's a favorite quote of mine that I've seen on the internet a lot, and I forget who's the author, but it says something like, anything done to a community without the community's involvement is not for that community. So there's no way, right?
I have to clap to that.
Yeah.
You see why you're like my little hero? Because you're not only an advocate for kids, but you understand the source of the issue, right? Because these same people leave after 2 to 3 years and go to their communities.
Right. Either you have people who are just coming in to do their service and check out and then go to grad school and law school or whatever. But then even worse, you have people who stay and go up the ranks, but aren't really invested in seeing, or I don't even want to say that they're not invested. They just don't know how to evolve that community because they don't even understand the community, right? It's like, I can't go, people laugh at me because I use this, but I can't move. If I was going to go teach a year abroad in China, right? Or move to China to be a teacher, I can't just buy my ticket, find an apartment, and go move to China. When I get there and that's all I did, I'm going to have a real culture shock. And it's going to be really clear to those kids that I'm not invested in them. Not because clearly I'm not Chinese and I don't look Chinese, but I didn't even bother to learn their calendar. I didn't bother to learn their language. I didn't bother to learn what their favorite foods are. I didn't bother to learn the different ethnic groups that are in China that interact with each other and things that go on and so forth. That to me, when you don't even bother to do the research on a place that you're going to, then those actions I interpret as not being invested and not really here for that community success. So Amen. You can say it beautifully. Oh, I want to help people. It moves me to help people who are disenfranchised. You can say all those beautiful buzz trigger words, but I'm looking at your actions. And when I look at, charter networks, when I look at, even, public schools, when I look at teacher training programs, I'm always shocked actually at the lack of training around being culturally responsive, around understanding the cultural, the ethnicities, the things that made that community. It's always so interesting to me when I see just a heavy, professional development around just math and reading statistics and data. That's a concern to me because there's no way you're going to get those numbers. You could get those numbers. You could get high achieving math and reading results, but they're not going to stick. And that's when you see a lot of high school dropout rates, kids graduating high school but not going to college, dropping out of college because they don't feel like they can hang, because you didn't cultivate their characters. And you couldn't cultivate their characters as people because you didn't even know who they were.
No, that is well said. I think the other issue is then you have people of color teaching, and some of them are not, and I'm going to say this just based on my experience. I don't want to say this is across the board. Then you have people of color teaching in these spaces, and they're not well equipped to do the teaching. They're not well equipped to be in front of a classroom, that they're either going through the experience where kids are not even respecting them or learning from them because, hey, I hate saying it, they weren't prepared. And then I had another experience based on previous knowledge in charter and public schools, that we had people of color serving in those communities, but they only favor kids that did not look like them. So they were playing into the white savior mentality, or the I only want to support kids that do not look like me. And that was always a little shocking to me, but it happens, and it's and even though those are the things that we see, it's interesting to see the organization that supports them. I like the word that you use as affirm, so I'm going to stick to that. Affirm, that empowers them instead of empowering the children, because that's the disservice we do to our kids, because then they go around thinking this is what we learned from school, and this is what I'm scared of school, and I'm scared of learning. What it should be the reverse, because of these people.
Yeah,
and the lack
sure.
of humanity. That they
100%, 100%. I mean, and I'll go, unpopular opinion alert, which I have a lot of. I'll let you know this, Luz. To me, it's not necessarily about color, right?
Okay.
I think there's definitely a need to have people that look like you in your community in positions of leadership. Hands down, kids need examples. We're human beings. Human beings grow and learn through learned behavior, right? Why does a kid who's always, who's been in quarantine, a quarantine baby, yell whenever, they, like, I don't know, the peg doesn't go in the right hole or something? Because they've watched their parents just yell when they're frustrated. Versus a kid who, like, a peg doesn't go in the right toy hole, they'll just look at it or roll over somewhere else. Why? Because they've probably seen behavior that's like, when they're frustrated, just let it go and keep it moving, right? So I say that to say, because human beings, we learn from watching, among other ways. So it's very important that if we want to create leaders and cultivate leaders in our community, that we have examples of leadership that they can mimic, that look like them. So they know that, like, oh no, not only a white person can lead this, not only an Asian person can do this. Oh, a Black person can do that. Oh, a Dominican person is over there, listening to a live file, but she's also leading a school. Yes, like, that's me. I see that. I can do that. That path isn't out of my reach. But that's the one thing aside, is representation matters and it's key. But I will say that as far as impacting kids in school, it's not so much about color, but about training. I personally, while I want representations in schools, I want us to get to a point that we're there, and there's a lot of politics and there are a lot of nuances of why we're not there yet, which I think we would need like 50 more episodes of this to get into. But just appreciating where we are right now and who is in the school, our focus should also be on training, because I don't care if you're Black, brown, blue, or purple. With the right trainings and the right focuses in those trainings, you can have a better impact and a deeper impact in your community. If you're a Caucasian person from Montana and now you're teaching in a school in the Bronx, that's just the reality, right? That's just where you are. So our jobs also are to train that person in the ways of this community, the history in this community. If you're in Mont Haven, or if you're in High Bridge, this is a deep Dominican community, you also might have some immigrants from different other parts of the Caribbean. This is, historical context around how those countries interact and how those people culture affect each other or whatnot. This is how people in the Dominican Republic talk. They talk fast, they talk loud. That doesn't mean they're angry. That just, they're probably hyped or excited, or it might just be the morning. They wake up like this. You know what I mean? Like,
so we just have them bow in the background, so we need to be
right. Exactly. So if you have kids in your classroom who are Dominican, it might be 8:00 in the morning, and they're sitting there with their bacon, egg, and cheese, hype, and like, yo, this one, loco, que lo que. And you're sitting there like, oh my God, this is unruly. Calm down. I'm sending a referral because you're aggressive. No, sis, this is part of the culture. And when you don't understand that, then we get into that miscommunication, misidentifying behaviors, exacerbating simple behaviors that are just cultural norms to us or you and me. But because you're an outsider, you haven't been trained, you haven't even been supported in understanding that is important. That's an important part of education, is understanding the people you're going to be around. You can't make those decisions, and you can't make the impact that we need you to make. So I think what needs to happen in education is twofold. One, let's start supporting and empowering more people of color to be in their communities, to lead, to be the representation that we need. And two, let's also support and empower allies or potential allies who want to come in these communities, and let's empower them through education, educating them about who they're around, what are the norms, what are the cultural norms, how to be respectful, how to engage, how to immerse themselves in the community. So we can really push kids in the way that we need them to be pushed.
This is powerful. And you dropped so many like gems. I'm just going to leave that there. There's nothing I could add to what you stated because I lived it. I saw it. I've been through public school system, seen the archdiocese, how they work, and independent school system. They all have their beautiful process and how it impacts children. It's just, especially kids of color, it's phenomenal. But I like the recommendation you're making because I feel like that's needed across the board. It doesn't matter if you're in a fluent school to a very high needs area school, even here in my community in the Bronx. I want to touch on how did you become an author? Because with this plethora of knowledge that you have, somehow you decided to be like, I want to be creative. I want to leave a legacy in its written form. So what made you get into that you wrote your book?
Well, honestly, Luz, I've wanted to write for really, like, since, I'm not even making this up, since like first grade. In first grade, I would make like little pamphlets. When kids would go to recess, I would stay in the classroom and fold the white pieces of paper, staple them in the middle, draw my own little thing, make little stories, and sit there. And that's how it, kind of escaped to my own little world. I think coming from Dominican Republic, having that language curve and sometimes feeling like I couldn't express myself the way I wanted to, led me to kind of like become a recluse and like express myself in writing. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because, being an immigrant, when you come here, and especially, my mom was a single mom and my grandma was in the picture. So it was like a 2-parent household, which is my grandma and my mom. They were very gung-ho on education, but they were very singular in what they saw success was, to that they didn't really, saw books or understand the metrics of books and how those came about. And definitely didn't see that within my realm of possibilities. So when I would, show them stuff, they'd be like, why are you wasting paper on that? Like, we need that paper for something else. Or like, your teacher's gonna get mad because they don't think you need that paper in the classroom for that ass. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is trash then, right? I shouldn't be wasting paper on it. But it was always like something that was poking me like my rib throughout my life. I've always like written different things down. Like my iPhone is full of like notes, just like thoughts that come. I'm the person that'll be driving. I have to pull over because I have like the stream of thoughts that would come in my brain, I think to deal with different things that happen in my life. So I've always written. I've always wanted to write. I always wanted to like voice something. And with writing children's book, being, I mentioned earlier that I was in education for a while. I'm still am in education. It was just a way to be creative. I think in the classroom, I really realized that I worked in charter schools, basically in the classroom. And I am ashamed to say this and admit this. And it's something that I regret deeply, but at that time, like there was really not much I can do about it. There was such an emphasis, and there still is, on academic data, and reading in classes was a chore. It was a data point. We would have classes set up where like, this is time for, whole reading, where I would read the book and then I would bombard the kids with a bunch of questions to check their comprehension. When they had independent reading time, they had a task to do. They had to fill in worksheets after they did the reading. So it was always reading to work. It was never reading for joy.
Fun. For joy.
Yeah, it was never reading at being fun was not a concept. Like, and it really dawned on me with my daughter when I would be like, okay, Chloe, you got to read the 30 minutes, because I remember in my school, they had a like quota every day. Part of her homework was read for 30 minutes. And she would be like, oh, come on. And it hurt me when she did that, because I was like, damn, I remember sitting reading the Harry Potter series in a hot summer in New York, and my grandma being like, why don't you go outside with your brothers? Like, and I'm like, no, I got to finish, the Deathly Hallows, like, or whatever. And I remember wanting to read these, and I have tons of books in my house about like the Russian Revolution, the SARS, just stuff that I pick up that I want to read. And I felt so hurt that that my daughter didn't have that level of reading, that my daughter felt everything I put in front of her to read was a bummer. And it was like, and then I worried because I'm like, oh my God, if you hate reading, when you grow up, like what every single job, I don't care if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't care what you want to be. Every single thing in our lives is more or less controlled with reading.
I agree with you, but I want to also play a little bit of devil's advocate because something I don't share very often. I was diagnosed dyslexic in college, my first year of college. I had a really hard time reading. I didn't learn English till I went to college. Like I knew like some basic thing of reading English, but like everything was in Spanish, you know? And one of the reasons I hated reading at such a young age was because of the struggle and like just how you shared. It was like very taxing. It was like some of the teachers did not know how to make it fun. The books that we were reading were not fun books. They weren't even like Harry Potter books. They were just like heavy, dry material. You know what I mean?
Huckleberry Finn.
No, not even Huckleberry Finn. I remember reading like these long things about like
Homer,
like Hiroshima, Homer, like Shakespeare, things that are like what the heck is going on? The classics, and
according to
to an all Dominican community being like, ¿y qué es esto? You know what I mean? And I was learning how to read, you know.
Pero ¿por qué esa gente se montan en ese caballo busca esa mujer?
Yeah, that's exactly. And like one of the thoughts I remember because I went to high school with my family, like I had a lot of cousins. Y con tantas mujeres se están matando por esta. Like that was the.
Sí, ¿y qué tenía esa Helena de por Dios?
Dios, estaría buenísima. Like that was always the comment. But then when I went to college and I was in the reverse, like in an all-white institution, I remember meeting this very kind teacher. I forgot his name, and I struggled reading English, and he got me things I like to read, and I started developing as a reader because of my level of wanting to do better, you know, because in Dominican communities in my era, like the things, education, yes, it was important because your parents talk about it, but that wasn't what we were seeing in the household. We were seeing a household community struggling to get by, two parents working, being raised by a grandmother. And I wanted to excel, but just didn't know why, because I didn't have that in me. So even though with my kids, I'm very blessed and fortunate that they started reading at a young age, I never worried about them not reading at a certain age. I don't know why. I have like a very like, it's gonna happen. Like, because I know teachers like you are rare, right? So when they see a teacher like you, like, I'm like, yes, they see a teacher that looks like them, that comes from their community, so they're gonna understand them and help them get on board. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, that's funny. Typical Dominican family. Do as I say, not as I do. Like
yeah.
Do la tarea, but like I never see you do anything, you know, grandma or mom or whatever. But you're pushing. But I know I get it. I think because of that, right? I think
no, you said you excel because like I remember my dad was saying this on Christmas. He was saying I hated math and I had to learn math again because of me because I was a horrible person doing math. And he said, I remember at one time he said, you know, at one point when she wasn't getting it, I'm like, you'll get it one day. Like that was like typical struggling parent that just finished working a 12-hour shift that had to like help their kids learn something.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you're fortunate because we never got any homework up in the house. It was like, mira, averíguate eso.
The homework help was the chancleta, que tú no lo hiciste. Mira la chancleta aquí. Mira la chancleta aquí.
Like, ma, the more you hit me, that didn't help me with the 12 times table, sis. Like,
oh my
God.
Now
I'm just traumatized.
Oh my God, I hated the
but I did learn it. Yeah. So, I mean, I say that to say because definitely like just you just shared, and I really want to highlight that you just said, it wasn't until you started liking stories and being shown stories that you like that you really started caring about reading. And unfortunately, and I don't blame teachers at all because I've been there. I blame the system, this like test culture, this
Driven.
over testing culture that's tied to money, because the reason these schools are so gun-ho about these test results is because a lot of their funding is based on their performance. And the performance measures are based strictly solely on student achievement. They don't take into account the whole student. They don't take account community service. They don't take account on, entrepreneurship skills. They don't take leadership. They don't take any of these things that should be metrics that you need in order to succeed as an adult. They only take, passing scores or high achievement scores on math and reading. So teachers then are, feel the pressure to push that data, because again, a lot of these people's promotions, salary bonuses, all depend on whether your school or your class hit the target. So fun is out of the question. It's about sit down, get this information, and learn how to answer these questions the way they're being asked on these tests. And what we're creating is generations of kids who are traumatized by academics. They don't want to pick up a book. They don't want to pick up a pencil and do math. They'd rather get on a video, get on a TikTok, release that energy there, because that's where they feel successful. They don't feel successful anywhere else, and they don't feel like it's engaging or for them. So when I started thinking about, publishing a book, I have some stories that I'm working on that are more for adults, but I was like, I really want to do like children's books. I really just want to write a fun story. That can, because I'm an educator, can be used to like work on comprehension, one-to-one understanding, and all these different like reading skills. But fundamentally, it's just a fun, funny story. It's something to get kids thinking and then go, oh, what? Wait, let me go back again. Is that really what happened? Not a lot of these stories. We have a lot of books in schools that are just printed for testing purposes. They're printed for guided reading, so a kid can sit through there and just go, the cat was in the hat, did this, da da da. Okay, what did that cat do? Why did he do that? And like, you can just go back and pick that out, and that's it. And then the story dies. We don't have a lot of stories that, I reference Harry Potter because I'm a huge J.K. Rowling fan, but we don't have a lot of stories that keep you thinking or make you feel engaged or make you feel part of that story, or that you want to keep talking about. And I think with the book I published, The Tale of Chicky Thing, and other books I'm working on, it's all about how can we get you still talking about the story? How can we get you to talk to your family with the story? How can we get you to both laugh and be like, wait, is that what you thought, mom or dad or sister or cousin? I thought this. Let's go back and look at this together. Oh, wow, this is silly. And just get a chuckle and keep it moving.
Yeah.
If I can have someone read a story, and the thing that I think meant the most to me when I got feedback about the story I published was that people laughed, was that kids clowned each other because one thought something crazy and the other one was like, nah, what are you talking about? If I can push human interaction and human in connections through what I write, then I've already won. That's the whole premise. Like, I want us to conversate. I want us to laugh. I want us to be joyous, because so many of our time is so structured. So much of our time is, being controlled and compared and assessed. There's not a lot of free time or creative time in education for kids. And I think that in the long run, that's going to prove to be detrimental.
Oh my gosh, you said a lot of things not only that I believe in and that I'm excited about, because I know your book is definitely fun. I've seen how it's resonated with a lot of individuals, but especially because it was just not only fun, but like the characters, they look relatable, and you use Spanglish, which is part of our community's language, and that's not just our community's language.
Which wasn't, a lot of people were like, oh, what are you should like,
only go Spanish or
English,
or
whatever. And I'm like,
I read why.
Change with the times.
I read why people are being very hard on that. And it's because they're coming from this era that they were not accepted to be very bilingual, and even being the type of people that use both languages at the same time. So they're trying to teach a structure for kids. And it goes back to what you're saying about heavily structured. So I love Spanglish, and I love when a lot of our writing and art expresses that sazon, that duplicity in our everyday living of being Spanish
100%.
and American. I need to move the conversation because I can't believe our time has just flown by, and I'm so excited. So if you were to give advice to a younger you or a person that wants to follow your footsteps, what would that be?
I think a younger me, I would tell myself to go with my gut more. I would tell myself that it doesn't matter what they're saying is right. You know, you feel it what's right. Don't do that. Don't go along with that. Like, you know, I think when I was a teacher, I always felt a lot of pressure to have kids like behave a certain way, act a certain way, produce certain results. And I tried to like put in my personality and bring in joy. Like, you know, I love to eat. So a lot of time would be around like bringing in food, surprising kids with food, like showing things to them that like, I care about you, even though like, yo, we have to go through this, letting them know like, I'm
process.
Right. We're going through this process together. Like, I don't want to do this either. But you know, and I would tell them, I would literally tell them like, one of my principles, I think you should hate me because I would really tell the kids like, yo, you already know this lady's gonna come in here and observe this block. Let's give the lady what she wants. Okay. So sit up straight, fold your hands. Do whatever it is that you do. Because then we don't, you know what she's gonna do? She's gonna talk to me for hours about it. And then she's gonna keep coming in here and ruining our, you know, what we got going on. And they'd be like, all right, Miss Martinez. I'd be like, all right, she's coming at 10:05. Let's get it together. And you know, they would do all they would the most. Yeah. They would do the most. So much so that I would have to turn away because it'd be like, y'all tried it. But they would do the most, and they would do like everything on the little checklist to be like the right kid. And as soon as they left, I'd be like, all right, close the door, put the blind down. All right. Yeah, okay, take your shoe off if you want. Yeah, you can sit on the rug. Yeah, as long as you do your work, you know, I'm not worried about it or whatever. Keep the voices down. I don't want any problem. You know what I mean? And we had an understanding, but I wish we didn't have to hide ourselves. Yeah. And I wish I didn't hide myself, because then when we had good results, people thought it was because of the other stuff, because of like, you know, that white dominant culture. It wasn't that. It was because really low key we were doing us.
Yeah, you let them be. Yeah. My mom was a teacher and she taught high school. And I remember she, in one of her things, and I hope it's okay to share, that she said, when a student didn't want to learn, she'll tell them, I know you don't want to learn. I don't want to even teach you right now because you're being so hard to teach. Like, she'll tell them, like, I want to teach you if you want to learn. But like, she was like, they'll have this honest dialogue. And before you knew it, the kid was sitting down, interested in, like, you know what? Let me see what she talking about. But it's because she had that moment to like get them to understand, like, yeah, teaching you is a job and I take it very seriously and I care about you learning, but I don't want to force this on you if you're really going to make it impossible. You know, like, I don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, these kids, the thing is,
they're human. They have a right.
I'm about to say that. I don't know why people act like we're coming in and we're dealing with people like something else. Literally human beings just like they get upset, they get sad, they get irritated, they get annoyed. You know what I mean? There's different, you know, outliers here and there, but for the most part, that's what it is. So I think that will be my biggest, is to go with your gut. And then also believe in yourself more, even when you don't feel anyone does. I think that, especially coming from a Latina community, I feel like females, in my experience, aren't supported in their aspirations as much as males. I think also coming from an immigrant community where we're just happy we're here. Okay? Yeah. Sit down, cómete eso y cállate. Like, don't do too much. Don't cause attention to yourself.
Oh, calladita te ves más bonita. Like, don't.
Right.
Don't, exactly. No sobresale. Like, that was always the message.
Keep your head down. Exactly. and even going up in school and this is what we have to change in education, going to these schools in America, the girls that were the quietest, the more pristine ones or whatever, they got treated better. And they were taught, said they were the smarter ones. But here I come, good grades, but loud and tall and always joking. And like, you know what I mean? A lot of times I was kind of like dinged. So I would say to believe, screw them. Screw who doesn't like believe in you or think that your value or see your value. Your value does not come from external sources. Your value comes within. So hone that value inside of you, nurture it, take care of it, and grow it in ways and in spaces where you feel good, right? If you're in a space and you feel undervalued, that's not the space for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spaces for you to push into. So that's what I would say to me and anybody. If right now listening to this, if you're somewhere, you're like, man, I feel like
this ain't it.
Here. Yeah. This ain't it. People don't see me. Everything I do, I think is bomb, but like everyone else treats like trash. That's because like, if you are in an ice skating rink and you're selling hot dogs, they want ice skaters there, right? They don't want hot dog vendors. Go to the hot dog vending convention where everybody around you is selling hot dogs and they're going to
go to Coney Island. Go to Coney Island.
Go to Coney Island. Bing bong. Right?
That's my thing right now. Island. You know that. Go to Bing Bong.
Right. They're going to love your hot dogs over there. Why are you somewhere in the middle of ice cream? Right? It don't even make no sense for you to be there. You know what I mean?
Invite Byron.
Right. Right. Find your tribe and go succeed in that tribe.
And speaking of that, I know we're coming to a close, but I have to say, a lot of what you've done is finding your tribe and making sure you have a clear vision for the community that you're coming from and that you're serving continuously, by making sure people are understanding that just because you don't look like us or you might not come from our community doesn't mean that you have lost your humanity or your capacity to understand and relate with others. So I applaud you for that. So I want to move on to finish the sentence. And this game is just to get to know more about you. It has nothing to do with our careers, our bucks, because we're just successful for just being. So finish the sentence. My dream vacation is?
Anywhere on the beach.
Yes.
Anywhere on the beach. My daughter. And first class everything.
Oh, that. I like that. First class everything. I can't live without.
Food. I don't know how some people go on these diets or
yeah, I'm starting to like want to live with just only air and not eating like some people do.
I'd rather work out for
or the water diet
than stop eating.
You know, my culo can't do that. My favorite food is
oh, that's my favorite food really is anything that my grandma makes because it feels like home.
It ain't tacos?
It is tacos, but like,
girl, you should make commercials for free for tacos because every time I call you, I'm gonna get this taco. I'm gonna tacos.
I do love a taco. I do. It's really close. It's neck and neck. I keep
saying if the Scarlens come over, I need to make her a little taquito bowl. Like my favorite, taquito cups because they're cute. You eat them and that's it.
Yeah, and you don't feel like you did too much.
Yeah, that's why I made them. My biggest inspiration is
my daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter, I constantly tell her and other people tell me, like, I don't know how you made this human being because she's so, not that I'm not nice, but she's really nice. She's so empathetic. She's so caring, so observant, so selfless. Like, she'll wake up early on a Saturday and clean the whole house before I wake up. For no reason. Like, she'll go and clean my car out while I'm working and then surprise me. Like, just always doing that. And I think God always knows exactly what you need. And I think I forever, I don't want to get mushy, but I think for a long time, I was always looking to fill something or look for like some type of
validation,
outside love or validation. And really, the more I see my daughter grow up and the older I get, I realize that forever love, that forever peace, was always, has always been inside of me, and then came out as her. It has been, next to me this entire time. So everything I do is for my daughter, for her to see things, have experiences, and engage in ways that I wasn't either allowed or afforded to.
Oh, that's so great. People describe you as?
Oh, I don't know, Luz. What would you describe me? I mean, you did do
So
I
always end with this question because I want to say how I would describe you as. I would describe you as a very selfless human being. We've met in a very unique situation, not only both being Dominican, but mothers and writers, but we share some people in common, and that's how we met. But as soon as you met me, you received me with open arms without even expecting it. Because I tend to be like, even though people know I have a very bubbly and loud personality, I need to observe people because I always feel like I need to know. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, esta mi gente, because I love that unconditional, selfless person that you are. And I want to describe you as that, and I want to celebrate you as that. But most importantly, I can't have you on my last episode of the year without sharing how important you've been to me. And I want to say that publicly because you helped me think of myself in a way that I don't think of myself, and validating myself. So I know that comes a lot with the career you've been afforded to do, that you help see the best in people and bring it out. But I thank you for that, because that takes a lot of courage and a lot of love, and you do that so beautifully. So you need to celebrate that for yourself. And
thank you, Luz. I appreciate that.
So glad I had you on my episode, because we've been trying.
I know, girl, but this Rona, we not gonna let Rona win.
With the Omarion and all the folks.
Listen, I know
the COVID family.
Listen.
But I'm gonna celebrate you, and this
thank
is my
you,
last
Luz. I appreciate
episode.
you.
So we are closing this episode saying, I love you all. Thank you, Scarlen, for being here. And I will be taking a much needed break from the Inspiration Hour for at least 2 months, and we will return hopefully in March. But again, thank my beautiful guests for being here. Thank you, Jerry Royce. And with that, good night.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
So, mujer, yo te voy a molestar ahorita.
¿Qué loca? Loca, ¿tú sabes qué yo voy a hacer hoy?
Ya yo terminé de cocinar. Let me stop the recording.
I'm going to make some French onion soup. Oh,
let me call you.
Yeah, okay. You call me.
Okay.